Have you ever wondered what it's like to live in the medieval city of Florence, Italy? Stay tuned to hear all about USF Abroad's Florence, Italy program on a special edition of the Honor Roll podcast coming up next. Hey Honors Bulls! We are back with another bonus episode of the Honor Roll podcast. Today we're talking all about USF Abroad's Florence, Italy program. The university offers an array of Florence-based programs in areas such as business, science, and psychology that range from a full semester to just 6 weeks. This year, the Honors College is also unveiling a new trip to Florence, focusing on art and invention. I'm here with honors student Amy Yacoub, who is going to share her experience studying abroad in Florence, Italy, with USF Abroad. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, first of all, thank you for having me. My name is Amy, and I am a second-year student at USF studying chemistry with a minor in literary studies, and I've studied abroad in Florence, Italy over the summer, and yeah, it's good to be here. Thank you, guys.
That's great. Can you give us a little overview of the trip?
Yes, of course. So, I was in Florence from June 23rd to August 2nd. It was a 6-week program, and it was a science-based program, so you could either do Orgo 1, Orgo 2, or Biochem. I did Orgo 1 there. And pretty much there you would take that class, and you were at Florence University of the Arts, which is the university that USF is in partnership with when they do the general USF program. And you would take that class and then another class where it was taught by teachers that are part of that university. And yeah, that was pretty much what the entire program was, and it was a lot of fun doing it. I really did have a good time doing it.
I did want to ask, could you just give us a little bit of what your day-to-day was like while you were in Florence?
Yeah, of course. So, pretty much, so the Florence classes, the ones you were taking with the professors from that school that we're teaching, those were 3-week courses. And then the USF course, which for me was Orgo 1, was 6 weeks. So for the first 3 weeks, it was pretty much, I would wake up at 8 because my class would start around 9, and it was a walking tour class. It was called Food Wine in the City Florentine Neighborhood Walks.
Good class.
And it was such a good class. I had so much fun doing it. And pretty much we would just go wherever our professor takes us, and that was probably one of the most fun classes I've ever taken. That was so cool. And it kind of allowed me to basically know Florence like the back of my hand because it's such a small city. I think people don't realize that you could basically go through the entirety of Florence in an hour. It's actually so cool. And then after that, I would go to Orgo, and in that building there would be a cafe. So I would get I don't know, a croissant or whatever. And then I would go to Orgo, and that would be it was a 3-hour class because of the 6 weeks, but it would basically be the first part is lecture, and then the second part would be practice, pretty much. And that honestly was a lot more helpful than I thought because it really got you going with the material. And then afterwards, I would pretty much go to my apartment. If I needed to eat something, I would eat. And then I would study. And then if I was doing something with my roommates or my friends, I would go out with them. And then, yeah, that would be my day pretty much.
This is kind of a specific question, but did you see the David?
I did see the David, yes.
Isn't he immense?
It is immense, I will say. Yes.
When I walked in for the first time and I just I turned the corner and there he was standing.
Yeah, that was
17 feet tall.
Yeah, that was the first thing. A funny story about that actually is that there is, on the first Sunday of every month, all the museums are free.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was another memory I was going to say. I hopped 5 museums in 8 hours.
Did you go to Palazzo Vecchio?
I did, yes.
That was my favorite. That was
really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hopped 5 museums in 8 hours. My feet were killing me after that, but it was so much
It's so
fun.
worth it.
It was so worth it.
You don't see that stuff here. It's
you
crazy
really
when
don't.
you're there.
And especially because my favorite museum I visited was Uffizi. That was my personal favorite because I had never seen anything like it. It was so cool.
Do you have a favorite piece from that museum?
Oh my gosh. I mean, just because of how massive it is, The Birth of Venus, I would say.
Oh yeah.
It was such a pretty painting.
Plus, there's statues all over Florence. You don't even have to go into a museum. You can walk down the street.
The whole place is like a museum. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
I think that's really one of the benefits of studying abroad is that you get an extended period of time, where as opposed to like if you go there for a week for like a vacation or something, you don't get to see all these things. You don't get to be completely immersed. How was like the language for you?
So honestly, because I didn't know too much Italian, I just used my Spanish knowledge because in some ways Italian and Spanish are actually a lot more similar than people think.
Yeah, it's not too far off.
Yeah, so if I was like, so if I could understand it, I could, but if I couldn't, I was just like, you know what? We're just gonna wing it and see what happens. So that's pretty much what I was doing in like terms of language.
Were people like really nice, like when they had to kind of like help you along?
They were, yeah. Actually, the people were really, really nice.
So what attracted you to the USF Florence trip in the first place?
So when coming to USF, I already knew that I wanted to study abroad. That was something that I've always wanted to do from the get-go. And actually originally I wanted to do the honors study abroad trip because there was going to be one to Florence when I first came, and unfortunately it didn't end up happening. So then in my chemistry classes, they were talking about the Florence program, and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. So I looked into it and I talked with my advisor about it, and he said it would be a really, really good opportunity for me. And then I just applied, and then from there it just happened.
Can you tell us about one of your fondest memories about the trip?
I had a lot of good memories of the trip. So probably my favorite was when I took a day trip to Cinque Terre, and that was my favorite place I visited in all of Italy because, first of all, it was just the liveliest place. Like, everyone was having a good time there, but also just being able to just see like how colorful it was and going to the beach and eating seafood there. It was just one of the best places I visited in the entire trip.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the food?
The food was delicious. The food was so good. It was pretty much kind of the same throughout, I guess you could say. Like, if you were to go to every part of Italy, a lot of them are gonna have the same like cuisine, yeah. So it's just pizza, pasta. In Florence there was actually some specific foods that are like specific to Florence, like Florentine steak is one of them.
I was gonna say the steak.
Yeah, it was really good. I really enjoyed that. And there was a few other ones, but I can't really remember off the top of my head. But in general, like, it's the same cuisine throughout, but each place is going to have like its own specialty, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Did you do any like cool, like other cool day trips on the weekend, or were there things that you enjoyed doing like after your classes ended?
Yeah. So because of Orgo, it did take a lot of time, but you still had the freedom to do whatever you wanted. So I think I did 2 or 3 other day trips in the entire program, and something that I like to do was kind of just walk around and explore the city, just because, especially once it gets to like the evening around sunset and stuff like that, like it was so much more lively. Like, everyone was going out, like going to dinner, having fun, shopping, whatever. And so for me, I just like to walk around and just people watch, I guess, just because, I don't know, it was just really cool just seeing how people live there in a sense.
Absolutely, yeah. Did you have any like favorite spots that you like frequented in Florence?
Yeah, so there is this one library. I don't know if you've seen it on like Instagram or TikTok or something. There's this one library that was like a cinema, and like it was a combination between like a library and a cinema.
Oh, cool.
And I would go there all the time because, for one, it was really pretty, so I just liked looking at it, but also it was just a fun spot to just sit, like chill with your friends, stuff like that.
What made you choose studying abroad in Florence over all the other study abroads that USF offers?
So Florence, I had always heard about Florence as like being one of like not the safer options, but like one of the more broad options you could choose from because you could do so much there. And in general, I've always wanted to go to Italy, so I thought that would be the best choice to do. And especially because I was a freshman studying abroad, I thought it would just be probably one of the easier study abroads to do. So, yeah.
So once you kind of knew you wanted to go to Florence, what was it like getting involved with the trip, and what was it like preparing to actually like arrive there?
So preparing to actually arrive there was honestly kind of tough because there was so much that had to go into it. You basically had to look at how you needed to get there, like plane tickets. You had to find cute outfits because for me, a big part of it for me was finding cute outfits. And you had to get your coursework ready. You had to there was just, to make sure your financial aid was ready to go. There was just so much that went into preparing for the trip that once it got there, you kind of just went with whatever was happening at the time. And for me, the main thing was just knowing how to plan ahead. Because especially during that time, like I saw people like planning their weekend. They had already their weekend trips planned out. They had like a plan of what they wanted to do this weekend and the next weekend. And I was like, wait, I don't have a plan for that at all. So planning for it like beforehand was the tough part. Actually getting there, it was mostly just, getting settled with the city that you're living in, like going to your apartment, because we all had apartments, and just settling in, getting to know your roommates, finding travel buddies if you needed a travel buddy, and then also like studying for your classes and stuff like that. So during the actual trip wasn't as hard, but like the plane, like just getting the plane tickets and stuff, like I was there 2 weeks before with my parents, so it wasn't as difficult because I was already there. But for other people, like it was a lot harder because you had to know how to get there and get to your apartment by yourself and stuff like that.
What was it like studying abroad with other people? Were you able to form like any kind of bonds, friendships with them?
I was. So especially with my roommates, like because you're with them pretty much every day, every night, you get super, super close. Like you become very, very tight. And especially in my Orgo class specifically, because it was such a small number of us and we were seeing each other every day for 6 weeks, we kind of not only bonded well together, but we were also able to form study groups. We were able to get to know each other more. And I feel like just being in the class and knowing we have the same goal of just getting through the class and like passing it, like kind of really helped us get closer together. So yeah.
Can you tell us about like something that really stood out to you that you learned perhaps about the culture in Italy or anything?
So I kind of learned that there was a lot of things I learned. I'm not going to lie to you. There was a lot that I learned. But I think what I learned was to just make the most of where you are. Because obviously like study abroad is a big thing. It's not like anything like minuscule or something to dismiss. So for me, kind of just being in the culture and just seeing how people like were just living there and like having a good time, even the people visiting, even if I didn't have plans or like wasn't really expecting something, like I just made the most of what I had and I made the most of any situation that I ended up in. So I feel like that was the big thing that I learned being on that trip.
And some of those like moments where you have nothing planned are honestly like the best moments because you actually get to go out into the city and actually like just be immersed in it and be present in it, as opposed to being like, oh, I have to go get on this train today and do this thing. And so I think those can be some really cool moments as well.
Yeah, and it also taught me to take things a lot slower because I'm an overthinker. I'm a chronic overthinker, so I just tend to overfunction when I see something. But like that trip taught me to take things slower, if that makes sense.
I think that's a really valuable experience. How would you say that like studying abroad really helped kind of maybe widen your perspective?
So in general, I think it not only allowed me to see like more of what the world has to offer, but I think it, especially because I want to go into medicine, being in the science program especially helped broaden my perspective of like science in different countries and medicine in different countries. And I don't know, I think especially in regards to science and medicine, because I want to go to med school, that's what I want to do. Being in Italy really helped broaden my perspective because I think a huge part of wanting to go into medicine is just like being able to see medicine from different perspectives and seeing science as a whole from a different lens or a different perspective. So I feel like being there allowed me to really broaden my scope of just how far I was looking into that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And like looking back on this experience, what advice would you have for students who are looking to study abroad, or maybe any travel tips for them, anything like that?
So I would say if you're going to study abroad, first of all, definitely look at your options because USF as a whole, not even just the honors program, even though they do have a lot of options, USF as a whole definitely does have a lot of options. And I think that even just outside of the honors college, you should be looking for that opportunity, like take any opportunity you get. And once you find that program you want, obviously talk with your advisor, talk with people who already did the program. That's what I did because my cousin did the program 5 years earlier. And so I was able to talk with her about her experiences. And also on top of that, make sure you plan a lot, because once you get there, it may be very, very overwhelming for you. I know it was overwhelming for me. So definitely plan ahead and just make sure that you're confident you want to study abroad, because it's no small thing you're doing.
No, you're committing.
Yeah, for sure.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Amy.
Thank
you so much for talking about your experiences. If you're interested in trips like the Florence, Italy program, check out USF's Education Abroad website for more information on how to get involved. That'll do it for this week's episode. The Honor Roll podcast is recorded in the Judy Genshaft Honors College at the University of South Florida Tampa campus. Production assistance is provided by honors student Sandra Napolitano and Professor Adam Davidson. Thank you all so much for listening, and please don't forget to rate and review our podcast, as we appreciate your feedback. We'll be back next week with more honor stories, and stay tuned for more episodes where we talk about honor study abroad. Until next time, go Bulls!